You know what's the one tool you have to have in order to shoot videos? A camera. It's so important that I'm currently giving away a free camera here on the channel. But time is ticking. All you have to do is be a subscriber to enter. That's it. It's easy. But when you're first starting out, it can be hard to know which camera you should get. I went out with what I think are the 5 best starter cameras you should consider and tested them out with my friend Sticks in order to explain the pros and cons of each camera to make this process easier for you. Also, so you know that I'm not talking out the side of my neck, I've also owned all these cameras at some point in my career and shot with them considerably. So let's kick things off with the camera that, if you're a fan of this channel, you already know I love. This first camera is the only true cinema camera on this list because it's the one that comes in at the most affordable price point. At only $1,200, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is an amazing entry cinema camera. Now, obviously, today you don't have to shoot on a cinema camera in order to get great video, but there are some really great benefits to working with cinema cameras. When it comes to the Pocket 4K, you're getting 4K RAW in this camera. A few pros of this camera are the very cinematic look and the very easy color grade. Speaking of color grades, one of the best things about buying this camera is that it actually comes with the pro version of DaVinci Resolve, which is an amazing editing software used by Hollywood professionals. Now, with this camera, and really all of these cameras, there's going to be a few things you need to consider. With the Pocket 4K, it starts with the battery life. It's just bad. With the money saved though, you can invest that money into batteries. Also, although the screen is massive and it's very great, it doesn't articulate. The last thing to consider is the fact that everything on this camera is manual. Settings, focus, everything. This means that the learning curve coming from zero knowledge is the steepest compared to all the other cameras on this list. But without a doubt, this camera produces the best image for the price compared really to any other camera. I already know that this next camera I'm gonna recommend, some of you might be quick to want to write it off, but the truth is that out of all the cameras we went out and shot with that day, shooting with the Lumix S5 might have been my favorite experience. For starters, this camera shoots full frame 4K at up to 30 frames per second and only crops down when shooting in 4K 60. It has a full swivel screen that was the brightest out of the bunch, and from what I could tell, it was very non-scientific test though. It gave me the most dynamic range while not even shooting in log. This camera has an in-body stabilizer and it can output RAW over HDMI. And did I mention that this camera comes in body only for only $1,700? Out of all the cameras here, you are not gonna get more specs and features for the money. Now, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. This camera's autofocus clearly struggles in higher frame rates, and as a part of the L-mount alliance, it does share some of the limitations in not having a large variety of lenses yet. And the lenses that it does have are a bit pricey. The last major con of this camera is that more people don't talk about it. If you're okay pulling focus from time to time and possibly adapting lenses to this camera, this might be the sleeper out of the whole bunch. So at the top of this video, I mentioned that we are giving a camera, which we are, and there have been some questions around it. So first, the question that I've really been getting a lot of is, how do you enter? Well, you have to be a subscriber and then that's it. Now, we are currently racing to 100,000 subscribers on the channel. So join the creative fam, hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed the content, and now let's move along to the next camera. If you want a camera that just works, this next one, it's probably for you. There's nothing flashy about the Canon EOS R. It might be the most lackluster, especially in form of specs, out of all these cameras. But what it does well. To shoot 4K on this camera means that you're gonna have to crop in on the full frame sensor, but the image still looks amazing. Also, when it comes to autofocus for a beginning videographer, which can be extremely helpful, this camera is second to none. The phase tracking is perfect, and when it comes to the color science, well, there's a reason why people obsess over Canon colors. And of course, with the purchase of a $100 adapter, now you can have access to all of Canon's extensive lineup of EF lenses. And then when you can afford to do the upgrade, you can also invest in some of the amazing Canon RF mount lenses that have been coming out. There's no doubt that for the price, the R is missing a lot of features, but of all the cameras, the R is a fully functional camera. It doesn't offer any features that it can't handle, so you know if you're using this camera that it's going to work for you. It's just not the best one, but you're never gonna have a headache when operating it. Now, I couldn't make this list without at least mentioning the Sony A7 III, Sony's intro to the full frame mirrorless market. Well, I guess that's technically the A7C now, but since they're basically the same camera, we're just gonna let it fly. Offering 4K at up to 30 frames per second, full frame, the A7 III is slightly better than the EOS R in the specs category, but it is missing some functional adjustments to make this camera easier to shoot with. First, the screen doesn't fully swivel out, and honestly, it's the hardest to see, especially in broad daylight. This is the only camera that I found myself needing to use the viewfinder in order to fully see if my exposure was right. Now, just like the Lumix, you do get an in-body stabilization with this camera, and I can't say it's as good as the Lumix, but it does help a lot when shooting handheld. This, mixed with some of their lenses that have additional stabilization, you can get some really smooth shots out of the Sony. The other major reason why I put this camera on the list is because when it comes to picking a camera that you think you want to use, you have to consider the ecosystem that you're going to be joining when it comes to lenses, but also future upgrades. And honestly, the Sony system as a whole is probably one of the better ones. The next camera is kind of a wild card. So as far as I'm convinced, it is a great starter camera, but you can also use this camera in order to start your video career. As I've shown in my real estate videos there where I shot a multi-million-dollar house with it, yes, that's right, I'm talking about the iPhone. You can use an iPhone as an awesome starter camera. Now, before you completely discredit mobile phone cameras, it is honestly the best place to start, especially when you're first starting out, because you really don't know what you don't know yet, and if you're just kind of trying to figure things out, the iPhone or really any modern day phone today is gonna do a great job for learning the basics, because you wanna do that before you start to invest a lot of money into a system that you possibly don't understand and can't properly use well. Now, moving back to that giveaway. Now, when it comes to the camera giveaway, that's just one giveaway we actually had going on right now. In the last video, I announced that I would be giving away a light to a subscriber who commented on the video. And so, to make sure that you guys don't miss out on future videos and giveaways, be sure to not only subscribe, but to click the little bell down there too. But the winner of the light giveaway is Miguel Arcega, I hope that's how you say it, who is a subscriber and a member of this creative fam. So show him some love in the comments, and also let me know which of these cameras are the best starter cameras for you and why. Also, if you have a better suggestion, I want to hear about those in the comments, but tell me why it's a better suggestion, and maybe I'll consider it for a future video. While I was working on this video, my friend Stix was working on a video as well, going over 5 things you should be looking for in a starter camera in general. So be sure to check that out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.